there's a concept called the wounded healer.
Yes.
And the most powerful shamans, magician, and healers are the broken ones.
Yeah.
As children in these tribes either had a near-death experience or a disease or some trauma opens the channels of communication, and they become the shaman of the tribe. And they heal not in spite of their wounds, but because of their wounds. They're in so much pain, they understand the pain of others,
Yes.
and they address them, but it eventually destroys them. And there's traditions in circumpolar shaman tribes. Shamans in North and South, they end up like Elvis. They end up as fat drug addicts, sick people, just there. And the tribe's like, well, that's your job. You're the one who has to heal us and entertain us and advise us. And the shaman's like, I know, that's my job.
Burden.
And they die. And Elvis was carrying that burden. He was a wounded healer, a shaman. And I have other theories. I try to approach it from Jungian, alchemical, different theories. We'll never know. It's a mystery. Welcome, everybody, to Aeon Bite. Great to see you. And if you're wondering why I'm putting that Elvis intro, is yes, there is a dark realization that MK Ultra program started with the shamans, breaking the children, training the children thousands of years ago. It's a stark world, but I didn't make the rules. And also, too, I wanted to bring that intro because as in my book, The Occult Elvis, I show how Elvis was indeed very much into UFO, extraterrestrials, conspiracies. He was ahead of the curve. He was ahead of Jacques Vallée and so many of the others. He had 3 UFO extraterrestrial experiences. So this has been going on for a long time, but it definitely relates to this show. And let's get started. My name is Miguel Connor. I am your Pompatus of Gnosis, and I hope you are doing well, whether you're watching live or on the replay. You are amazing, and you're going to do so many wonders once you go inward and find out who you are and what reality is not. And today I am very excited to be joined by MD Selig to discuss a whole bunch of topics, but centering on his excellent novel, which I enjoyed, and that is Hush. MD, thank you very much for coming on the show.
I'm honored to be here, Miguel.
We are honored to have you. And I guess I should ask you off the bat, you are a musician. You've recorded music. Are you an Elvis or a Beatles person?
Oh, I like both. I admire both for kind of different reasons. I just saw an Elvis video not too long ago where they just had him playing guitar by himself. And I'm a guitar player. That dude, just unbelievable. I had no idea. I knew he played piano, and obviously he's got pipes, but
right.
Wow, his guitar playing was just off the chain. I was amazed. And he was he was riffing on blues and everything else. I was just like, God, he's just across the board phenomenal musician.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for that, for sure. It's interesting when Elvis met the Beatles, they hung out, and Elvis was trying to learn bass, and Paul McCartney had to, gave him tips on how to learn that. So there is definitely a connection. And
not a bad guy to get tips from.
No, not
a bad guy to get tips from if you're playing bass. Yeah,
exactly.
Paul McCartney to help you out.
yeah, guy revolutionized bass. He doesn't get that much credit. And with us, we've got Graham Pong. Graham, how are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. I was going to say, Paul played the bass upside down, so being left-handed.
He did, yes. Very true. Awesome. Well, good to see people on the chat. As always, if you have any questions, please super chat them so that we can get them. We've already got a good crowd here. And not much on the housekeeping side. As always, please support Aeon Bite in any way you can. And let's get started. Well, MD, let's start with you. You've had quite a life. Again, you've been you're a musician. You were in a Desert Storm, flying combat missions and sorties in an A60 intruder. You've been awarded medals. I mean, just an amazing life. You are a filmmaker. You've directed and starred in Southern Justice, which you can find on Netflix. You directed and starred in The Gun Runner Billy Kane, which is currently on Amazon Prime. So you've had quite a life. So I guess I should start with the topic. When did you first take the red pill, or when did you realize that reality wasn't what they showed us, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Miguel, thanks for that nice introduction. That's I'm flattered. And to answer your question, I was kind of a 2-second brief. So I came out of college, went right into flight training, and that led. I went through Navy flight training for the Marines. I was a Marine pilot. And once I was selected for A6 intruders, my squadron immediately went overseas. We initially were in the Philippines, but then the build up to Operation Desert Storm began. And at that moment, for whatever reasons, you shift billets in a squadron. You're a pilot, but you might be a maintenance officer for 6 or 8 months. You might be, in my case, an intelligence officer. So it just so happened that at the beginning of Operation Desert Storm, which, if I recall correctly, was January 11th, is when we took ordnance over the fence and we didn't bring it back. Like, that's when it kicked off. And I was reading top secret briefs as the intelligence officer. And then the other wild thing that was occurring, so kind of 3 things. I'm actively involved in combat missions. So I'm attacking north of us, which eventually becomes the highway to hell, is what it becomes famous as. That was kind of my primary area of operations. But what would occur is I would land and go to the mess hall, which was if you think of it, just a gigantic warehouse for all the officers of NATO, American forces, Canadian. I mean, everybody was on that base. It was a expeditionary airfield on the southern tip of Bahrain called Sheikh Isa. It's no longer top secret. That's why I can name it. But at the time, it was just a huge conglomerate of every country you could imagine, Navy, Marines, Air Force, as well as countries, right? So, and I'm in the mess hall watching CNN on a huge screen. They just, this is when CNN was exploding.
When it mattered.
Right. So, and who knows if it mattered. All I can say is that what I was watching on CNN, what my missions were involved with, and what I was reading on top secret briefs were 3 separate things. And I just remember at the time, like, okay, I just remember being confused. Like, it seems like this strategy has nothing to do. There was nothing in the top secret briefs about let's go get Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons or where they might be, which I thought was interesting. CNN was saying, well, we're there because, Saddam Hussein has these weapons. And then I'm attacking artillery and tanks coming south, so I was just, it was my first hint of there's just not a level playing field here. And then I sensed through the top secret briefs what I was reading, because I was getting worldwide briefs. So not just for our squadron, what was coming through for our particular squadron, but I'm reading all the briefs that are on the top secret feed, so to speak. So I was fascinated. And that's what kicked it off, was just realizing there's just someone is pulling strings well above all of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So that's basically started a rabbit hole of uncovering things, research, what so many of us go down there. And it's, I'm
Right.
sure it's not an easy rabbit hole, because we all had sort of an idealized view of our country, of our world, of our universe sometimes. And then we go down that rabbit hole, and that's what you've been doing.
Right. And I'm sure you and Graham can attest to this, as anybody else who starts doing heavy research into what might be happening behind the scenes. And in my case, understanding alien traded technologies that have been happening since even before Roswell. And what happens for me is I tell Lincoln, my partner who runs my publishing company, but he's also, keeps me afloat on all these podcasts, that there is a sense of, when you start going down the rabbit hole of grief and the 5 stages of grief, because you realize how pristine the cabal is at the hoodwink. And when you realize, I mean, I'm 62, when you realize you've just lived it, where you are absolutely convinced I'm a skeptic. There's no aliens, there's no this, that, and the other. And then as you start to dive into it, you realize, no, there's too many physical people from the secret space program who their mind wipe technology is glitching. They're giving the same accounts. They didn't even know each other in the programs. You're realizing the Bob Lazars of the world who worked on alien spacecraft, he hasn't changed his story for 35 years. He doesn't make any money off of it. He is the real deal. I got some secret information about him regarding his tenure at Los Alamos. He can't be more, a hero in my book because of what he's dealt with. And so that's what's happened for me, is I just realized, like, I love now having a sense of my actual reality around me, but I also notice a lot of times it stings to just think, God, I'm a pretty smart person, and I have been absolutely deceived for my lifetime.
For sure. I always bring up this quote by Michael Malice: the smartest dogs are the easiest to train. They use our intelligence in university scholars, smart people against it, like a jiu-jitsu. And that's part of their manipulation, right? Of one of their many tools.
Yeah,
And
they
you
work
see,
both sides.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, divide and conquer. So you see, they've been mind controlling us, since World War II with various techniques beyond propaganda. What are some of the other ones that you've encountered?
You mean as far as how the hoodwink has occurred?
Yes.
Well, I certainly believe that the actual people, let's just say the Mac Brazzles of the world, Mac Brazzle, for your listeners, I know they already know this, but I'll just remind people that Mac Brazzle was kind of the center of the Roswell controversy. He had a massive patch of foil on his property, and then eventually he realizes, oh, there's 5 dead aliens on my property too. He didn't realize that at the first moment. It wasn't until later where he wrote out further and realized there were ejection pods with 5 dead aliens, and that's his evolution of being threatened, eventually having his son killed, absolutely suspicious circumstances. His army, I'll just call it a physical, but beyond a physical, where they just took him through the ringer because he was an old school rancher who doesn't lie. They just don't come from that breed. And he said, this is what's on my property. This is what I saw. He told the radio station, he made a recording of it, and they were about to broadcast second level, where he said, there's actually dead aliens on my property. He got shut down just before that, and he still would not recant when he was in Army interrogations until they just basically not only threatened him, but put him through the physical ringer. And he was with them for a week. His friends, and this is my thing, is excessive research. Like, once I realized, okay, Mac Brazzle's a player, let me look him up from a million different angles. Let me look up everyone who knew him. Let me read their accounts of him. Let me understand where he walked, where he was, what happened, what time of day. And once I vet somebody hard enough, I kind of have a story of what his evolution was for that long weekend. And actually, for him, it went on for a week. And that's what you'll find in Hush, is that I have to, I'm writing from a fictional standpoint of being in Mac's head and what he's going through. So that's just the way I tell the story. But for your listeners, if they're able to read Hush or get the Audible, which should come out in the next day or so, the facts around each evolution, each covert thing that goes on, I have done my absolute best to vet, research, and make sure that what you're reading is what happened in those moments.
And that includes the Malaysia flight, which was that was a hard part to read.
Yeah, it's a tragic evolution.
Yeah, it is indeed. It is indeed. Yes, and of course, is this a decision you made consciously? Because often we humans don't listen to facts, especially because we're all programmed to some extent to another, right? And
Mhm.
and even then, if somebody, our parents say don't steal, we're like, ha ha ha. But if we see it in a story, read it in the Bible or watch it in the movies, it's better. Fiction somehow hits deeper, as I often tell people, our reality is better conveyed, or it hits harder when we watch movies or documentaries like The Matrix or John Carpenter's They Live and all that. Is that why you decided to do this MD? Because
You mean to present it as fiction based on
correct,
fact? Mhm.
correct.
That's
Or it's
exactly right.
protection.
That's
Sometimes it's protection. It's like, hey, it's just fiction, man.
not really in my case. I feel like, Miguel, if the cabal wanted to take me out, they could certainly take me out. They could kill me. They could silence my voice. But those of us that are coming from love, we're bringing it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that it's unstoppable. So I don't work from fear. I'm happy with my life. If I'm off today, it wasn't me that did it. You can rest assured I'm a pretty happy person. But to get back to your other point about the Malaysian, or your question about the Malaysian and why I decided to go with fiction based on fact. Obviously, there's a lot of parts of that timeline that I'm giving you that I have to kind of speculate between the known points. So to give you an idea, when the cockpit recordings came out in 2014, being a combat pilot and having spent years on radios, I can pretty much tell if someone who contacts me is a German controller, even though everyone speaks English. English is the common language for all pilots across the world. You have to speak English when you're dealing with air traffic control, departure tower, any of the interim, and especially if you come across military of any country, it's still going to be in English. But you can very clearly tell when you're speaking to an Asian background type of an Asian background pilot or ground controller or ATC controller. Same with American, German, French. It's so clear, right? Because you just get used to hearing like, oh, that dude is from France.
Yeah.
So when the cockpit recordings came out in 2014, I think you'll find this interesting. This has to do with, again, covert operations that are controlled not just from the front side, but from the back side as heavily and for years. So I'm listening to those cockpit recordings and I'm going, wait a minute, that dude from takeoff to the end of the flight till 40 minutes later, the famous final, good night, Malaysia.
Right.
I knew that was an American. I knew it from then. I didn't know who it was. I just knew like, okay, the Asian dudes that are on all these calls from ground control, ATC, they're getting ready to take off. They are cleared for takeoff. That is the final Asian voice. You can go back today. They're viral online. You can certainly listen to the beginning of my Audible book where I will make the call in my voice to kind of give you an idea, because radio calls are hard to understand if you're not a pilot. So I say the call on the Audible version, and then you'll hear the actual Asian pilot make the call, or after they were executed for the rest of the flight, you'll hear Benjamin R. Waters. I didn't know who he was. It took until literally 8 months ago before they identified him as a CIA operative. And then I knew, like, of course, anyway, to recreate the actual storyline that's what I consider to be the actual factual truth of exactly what happened to that jet. You'll find in the book that I'm taking it from takeoff through, I won't tell too much, but to each point that it's known to hit, from satellite transmissions and satellite pings including from Benjamin Waters, who's the pilot now, the only person in the two-seat cockpit at this point. It's the same voice for the rest of the flight.
Wow. Mhm.
And he is picked up pinging satellites even when the jet is black. So I have his timeline knowing where the jet was because Miss T is on the sailboat looking up at a particular moment in time going, the jet was right above me. It was smoking. That matches the teleportation videos, timestamp on the NRO videos. It becomes very clear to me exactly where the jet is, what altitude. Ben makes his calls. It's really easy to follow it all the way to Diego.
It is, and again, we don't want to give too much about the novel. We want to cover it, but again, nonfiction
Yeah,
books, you give away the spoiler up
for
front.
sure.
Fiction, we gotta kind of be careful. And before, well, I wanted to say this. Yeah, you talked about love and confidence, and obviously you have purpose, and life and death. They're illusions. As men, we have a quest, and often death is the end. It's an honorable thing. But I love how this is reflected in the end, or more or less the climax of your novel, because the protagonist, Viola, I was touched because, we're outgunned. These wickedness in high places, archons, aliens, and their puppets in the government. They're going to win. They have all the firepower, information, everything, but we have something called love, awakening, understand. We have a superpower that tells us everything's going to be okay in the end, right? As long as we have faith, as long as we understand our humanity. And that's what I really loved about your novel. It's not, we don't have to shoot our way out of things like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, and I think it's really important as, I'm covering our covert history basically. So when the reader reads the book, you're going to get our covert history starting in about 1940.
Mhm.
But I think the key thing to remember about my experience of all the alien, from talking with contactees, watching contactees being interviewed who have been out in space, who have dealt with the aliens, George Cavazos, there's so many who have active relationships in the alien world.
Right.
And the thing that I get over and over is the reason the malevolent aliens are breaking the prime directive and dealing with the cabal is because of fear.
Mm.
And when you understand that all of it, everything that's occurred with the cabal and the malevolent aliens trying to control the planet, has to do with understanding that humans are considered royalty literally in the multiverse.
Mm.
Aliens across the board will just basically say, look, when you guys rise into what you're about to be, you're absolutely completely beyond all the other alien races. So to give your listeners a kind of an idea of what occurs, we work in the third density.
Mhm.
We see each other in the third density, but you got to remember the reptilians, an alien race that has one bad faction that happens to be here. The Draco reptilians are not a bad race. I want to be clear about that. They have a faction like humans have the Nazi faction.
Mhm.
We're pretty good as a race. Humans generally, I think we bring it. We do our best to bring love and do the right thing. We have factions that sometimes do the wrong things. The Draco reptilians are the same. There are Draco reptilians that live in and around our planet. They are in the lower fourth density. You don't see them. They
Mhm.
can appear to you. Just like Nordics work in the seventh density, and
Right,
they can
right.
appear to you. So what all of them know is that when we rise, when we step into who we are, we will be able to move not only through all of those densities. There's some hint that we may be able to go up to the 13th density. It's just a higher vibrational level, and that's our capability now.
Mhm.
We just haven't quite stepped there yet, but a lot of stuff is happening. So I just want to be clear that all of this stuff is occurring because the reptilians fear what we're about to become, and came here before us to they had the looking glass to go, these guys are about to rise. Humans are about to rise. And they were here long before we were here, prepping for us.
Well said. Beautifully said. And a lot of the guests have recently talked about one of the functions of the cabal or our governments with the whole alien disclosure that we're getting recently is they want to replace the old religions and create a UFO religion. Where do you stand on this theory, MD?
What I would say is be careful of who's controlling the dialogue. Your government, no matter what government you are under, French, American, that's not who's running the show. And you're not going to get this disclosure that people want, where they think, okay, at some point our government's going to say, you know what, right down the street, we are opening the alien museum of all this stuff we've had. You get to walk in and touch ships. There's going to be dead and live aliens. It's all, that's not, that's not what's going to happen. So let me give you an example why. Let's just pretend that you're Lockheed Martin. You're the largest military contractor on the planet. You have so many contracts from the cabal to reverse engineer alien technology. I want to give another little hint because your audience is smart. People are saying, but how does that work? So I'll give you a Reader's Digest version. If we have a B-1B that we give to Lockheed, that's under what's called a Special Access Program, an SAP. That's below Top Secret 17, which means our fiscal auditors in our government can see, oh, it's a B-1B. It's being worked on by Lockheed Martin. Awesome. What our fiscal auditors don't get to see is above Top Secret 17. The president is Top Secret 17. The president doesn't get to see what's above it. And what is above it is what's called unacknowledged special access programs. Think alien technology being reverse engineered that's been traded for since before the 40s, alien transactions where we give them something in it, because America, and not only just America, all these other countries, when the malevolent alien said, hey, we'll give you something for something, immediately all of these unacknowledged special access programs were created so that reverse engineering could occur without our government knowing what was going on. The American public doesn't know what's going on. So if you think of Lockheed Martin as an onion, you're only seeing the outside of the onion when you're seeing the B-1B that's being worked on, that you get to know about, that the fiscal auditors will say, yeah, they've just spent $1 billion on one, or whatever they cost. But when Donald Rumsfeld said $2.3 trillion are unaccounted for, and that's in 1 year, I think that was 2001, whatever it was. That money is for the unacknowledged special access programs. And guess who's paying for them? We are.
We are.
Right? Now, I'll just say one more thing, Miguel, and then I'll close this part out. Catherine Fitz, in this past year, I was going to bring her up.
Yes,
is saying the same thing that Donald Rumsfeld said 20 years ago. She's got a pair, and she took it further, and she said the trillions that we're missing this year, so every year, are going to deep black projects, deep underground military bases, and spaceports throughout our planet, meaning Diego Garcia, meaning Kirtland, meaning Area 51, 50 floors down. McCord is daily flights with the TR-3B to the moon and back. We have a Lunar Operations Command. I'm just saying, all of those trillions, year by year, that we paid for, we don't get access to any of that amazing stuff. And that's how it all somehow vanishes. The money, as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's so disturbing. And I tell people, why are you worried about no no kings or what's in the White House or who the mayor of New York is, or it's all this nonsense. We have to look at the big picture, the spiritual war. And Austin Fitz, she agrees. We got to look at the spiritual world and we got to get to the top, right, MD?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
only way we get out of this.
Yeah, and I think just to refocus for everybody, for folks to realize, like, if you're looking for congressional hearings, and if you think this alien museum is just going to open up where your congressional hearings are suddenly going to give you this great divulge of information, you're looking in the wrong direction. You have to remember, our government is a revolving door. Those folks come and go every 2 to 4 years, all of them. Right? I mean, maybe the president gets to stay for 2 terms. The president isn't told anything. You have to remember, the president is only cleared to top secret 17. When Donald Rumsfeld made the comments about we're missing all this money, the president didn't have an answer, because the president the president can't even go to Area 51. So think about this. The CIA buys Area 51 in the late 50s, and the way they take it rogue is they just raise all the clearance levels to top secret 17 and above. So it's, to even go there, you have to be top secret 18. I think Bob Lazar was working at probably level 23 or 24. We'd have to look at his majestic badge, but he's majestic level. But my point is, the president can't even go there. If you remember, Eisenhower got really pissed and said, I'm going to bring the Third Army there if you don't let me get some people in there to see what's going on. He was able to send 2 guys that were cleared above top secret 17. One of those guys I think both of them interacted with a live alien in detainment at S4 back then. And the final thing I'll say about how intense it is, that our government has nothing to do with alien traded technologies, and I mean nothing. Eisenhower was trying to tell us in his departure speech, you can go back and watch it. He's actually scared during the speech. He had wanted to give it before, but finally on his departure day, he's like, I'll paraphrase it. I'm not in control anymore. Our Congress isn't in control anymore. The military industrial complex is in control worldwide. What he was trying to say was, that's who has the contracts. There's a group above all of this that runs everything. And I have lost all control. That's what he basically said. Yeah. And he tried to tell Kennedy, like, do not shoot your mouth off, or they will take you down. And that's exactly what happened.
They will. And also at the end of the speech, he talks about the scientific technocrats. So those are the power players, Right. Don't worry about Republicans, Democrats, or all this nonsense they're throwing you. It's just, it's itemizing your consciousness, people. But listen or don't. Well, let me be, Graham, what do you think? Or I hope you're not getting too black-pilled.
Oh, no. I was going to sit there and say, if they're going to put up this alien museum, is there any way they can put it across the street from Ken Ham's Ark? I just think that'd be a great 2-for-1 trip.
I'd go. And then I go to Graceland.
Wouldn't it be fun, Graham, to go in there and just watch old video footage of Eisenhower at Edwards when the whole 3-day event occurred, and all of the stuff that went on at Roswell? Because at every event, that's the one great thing about the military, it's all documented on film and photographs. Every single covert event that has occurred is documented. I'd love to see all that footage just to see what it was like.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, as long as we can trust the footage, of course. Yeah. I found it interesting. You brought up Diego Garcia, and I still remember the first time I heard about that. That was when one of my buddies, who, of all things, he was in the Coast Guard. We got stationed there back during the Vietnam War. And, he told me that, they go out on occasional patrols. Other than that, it was like the most boring 2 years of his life. Occasionally they get a supply, refueling plane or something like that. But at the time, again, he was in a different, wasn't any of the secret stuff going on there. And,
he was there in the Vietnam era, Graham?
Yeah, they're in the mid 70s, just at the tail end of Vietnam.
Right. So
and
I believe that runway was not put in. It's 12,000 feet now, maybe 13,000 feet now, but it was 9,000 feet initially. And I believe it came in the mid to late 70s, if I recall correctly. That's when the Seabees actually built that runway. So
Okay.
he was there. There may have been amphibious birds that were landing for whatever reasons, but he was there when I believe there was no runway there. If he was there like in the early 70s in that time frame.
It was probably 74, 75, so it could have been during that transition time and all.
Sure.
As time's gone on with my research more recently, I definitely think there's a connection between Diego Garcia and Kumari Kundam, the sunken Atlantis of Hindu mythology, Tamil especially. But I'm curious on as far as the interactions between the military and I call them the others. I'm not willing to limit them to aliens or reptilians or anything like that. They're more of a generic other as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Sure.
And do the military officers actually think they're in charge of the others, or that's my first question. Because to me, to think that you would outsmart those others that's foolishness on the military officer's part. Tag.
You're asking me if I think that the generals who are there for meetings at Diego Garcia think that they have any sense of control over, say, a reptilian who's hosting the meeting? No. They know. Okay. If that's the question you're asking.
Yeah. It's like basically it's the the idea of well, I'm actually in charge, when it's like no, you're dealing with something beyond your capacity to understand, and thinking you're in charge is one of the biggest mistakes you can make.
Absolutely. And Graham, to your point, I'll say something that you do your best when you do your research, but I'll just tell you this. Those who run the show, even at Diego, but overall, I'll just say the cabal itself, it is absolutely too smart in what it does for it to be all human. Mm-hmm. There has to be either hybrids working within the cabal, or it's completely alien. But those guys, from the hoodwink, from me studying, how did they do this? How have they done it for so long? How have they been so far ahead of humanity to just keep us spinning on our own government or whatever they want to do? All I'm saying is, it appears to me there is no way human intelligence is thinking that far in advance, knowing how we're going to react. There's either looking glass technology, alien technology, or all of it going, this is what's about to happen. And therefore they make adjustments from that.
Agree 100%. I'd also throw in existing ancient, pre-human civilization technology.
Sure, absolutely.
My general rule is that if you know the person's name, they're not one of the people who are actually in charge. The people in charge, you don't have a clue who their name is.
And for sure, I have been clearly informed through my sources that who we think as a human, let's say a big media mogul, and then I find out there's nothing real there. It's AI.
Yeah.
Interesting. I did have one last question, and that is, do you think one of the things that those others may be setting up is, the classic Project Bluebeam, where they're going to have a pseudo alien invasion and use that to, roll out all sorts of nastiness. Tag.
Let's see, how can I answer this in a kind of a Reader's Digest version? It's a great question. And so all I can say is, I don't think you have to concern yourself with that. So I'm sorry I'm not answering the question directly, but I will say no, if I have to guess, that's not going to occur for a number of reasons.
Fair enough.
They're failing right now. So what's occurring is not only is Gaia, or as the old folks talk about, the planet Sophia, rising, turning inside out, blooming, just crazy energy. What that's doing is the reptilians literally can't stay here. So my understanding is, as of just a couple of months ago, 97% of the reptilians that are part of the control group have literally died or have tried to escape and then either shifted off planet or were killed by, we do have benevolent races all around us watching this theater go on. The benevolent races won't break the prime directive, but they've been watching for quite some time. The reptilians, the Maitra Greys, the regular Zeta Reticuli Greys, all of those Greys work for the reptilians. The reptilians run the show. In my best research, the reptilians are known as the most psychotic, smartest, brilliant geneticist. They are beyond everybody else with neural engagement. They're beyond the Greys. And the big bully in the ring gets to run the show. And they are known to have taken over other worlds throughout, not just this galaxy, throughout the multiverse, with this exact same velvet takeover, where the population that is being infiltrated and taken over completely believes there's no such thing as aliens. It's absolutely a perfect way to take over a planet. And that's what they've been trying to do. Fortunately for us, all I can say is love is rising, and that it's just completely unstoppable.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing us he didn't exist. That's how you win the game, for sure. Do you think love is rising? It seems Western culture is kind of losing its marbles, if you know what I mean. It seems nihilism, existential despair, drug addiction, alcoholism. It seems things aren't going well. What do you think, MD? Or is it just takes 20% of us to wake up to tilt the scale?
My impression of all big changes, even personally, is it gets really messy right before the bloom occurs, right? So it's a struggle for the flower to bloom, and then and nothing's going right, and it's just a storm, and the wind is blowing, and you're just in a maelstrom of awfulness, and then all of a sudden, it's just like if the energy and the intent, which is what we're coming from, continues, which is what we do. Our intent is love. It's going to happen very quickly, and the planet is already doing Sophia. I call her Sophia. I know the New Age movement calls her Gaia. I'm down with any of it. I just call her Sophia because I know the ancient ones called her Sophia, and I just think it's a beautiful name.
They did.
And so Sophia is rising, and it's just, it's inexorable. We are rising with her. The reptilians literally cannot stay with the new energy that's coming out of her. She's part of it. We're part of it. I'm just saying, yes, it looks messy right now, and the cabal still has a very strong hold, but they're failing, and they know it. We're going to be okay.
Great words. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the early church father Irenaeus called Sophia Terra, Gaia. So it was in the air. And of course, I love in your novel, my eyes perked or my ears perked or whatever, something perked when you have there's a lot of action. You know, there's I won't say there's a good hybrid who's helping the protagonist, and then we get the anti-gravity ship, and her name is Sophia. I was like, well done, MD. Love that.
I'm glad it's good when people have done lots of research where they realize this is all everything in Hush. Like I said, I do excessive research. If it's in there for a reason.
Yeah, well, why don't you give the audience a little a summary of Hush, or is that possible?
Sure. So
Because it's
Hush is
got so much.
basically sure, I'd be happy to. Hush is basically your covert history from the early 40s. So all of the events that I can tell where there are significant human alien transactions taking place. Aliens also have to sign agreements. It's not a verbal thing. So they have to sign it. The malevolent aliens that are breaking the Prime Directive have to sign agreements. And Hush is about all of those transactions, including Roswell, but it also woven into Hush. And the reason I wove it in is the tragedy of the Malaysian, I'll just call it evolution. It's absolutely tragic. I won't give away the details. You can read them in Hush. But I will say that because of the alien traded technology that is used not only in the hijacking, but for the teleportation of the jet to another space that allowed them to take it to Diego Garcia, I wove that in for a number of reasons. Mainly, once I realized I have information that I know is being controlled in the post, meaning I knew the pilot was an American. And I knew the post investigation right away. I knew, like, okay, they are controlling the post investigation because I know the investigators who are listening to these cockpit radios are knowing that that's an American pilot. I knew it right away. And for all these years, I've been going, okay, so they're controlling an event that occurred. I didn't know what occurred. I knew the hijacking. I knew the jet was taken. I knew it was taken. I just didn't know who took it. I knew the pilot was American. And it took years for them. I won't tell you how the information comes forward about Benjamin R. Waters being an operative. You can read it in the book, but he's clearly identified. And he's clearly identified, not from me, from experts around the world who identified his transmissions hitting satellites when the jet was completely black, completely out of range of Wi-Fi, satellite, everything else. His pings are still hitting, and they know it because his pings were encoded with SHA-3 hashing. They are encrypted 6 ways. He's the only human on the flight communicating with satellites, and you get to see where he communicates all along the flight line. So you're following what he's saying, as well as the outside people, like people who are seeing a burning jet go by right over them, fishermen, and then a sailor, and you've got a guy on an oil rig going, I saw it explode, and I saw it for 10 seconds. So you can really identify where the jet is in space and time, especially if you're a pilot, to go, okay, well, if the jet's on fire, what do? If you need air, you dive. I mean, so all of the what I've put in Hush that you'll get to read about. And again, I put it in because I felt bad for the families. I wanted them to have closure. I wanted them to know that at least one person is going to tell them, I think our government's amazing. Do we make mistakes? Yeah, we do. Was this a mistake? This was a big mistake. But I wanted all of not just the victims to have some comeback. I wanted the victims' families who have suffered to this day.
Of course.
And I voted for Obama twice. He's very aware that jet was taken on day one. He's very aware those hostages, all of them, were executed.
Yeah, it's stark. It really is stark. Yeah, and there's so much in your novel. It's quite a ride, but again, you give away the truth. You even bring in adrenochrome, was it called on the street? Scream shit? How did you come
Because
up with
people are
that?
screaming when it's when it's created.
Mhm.
It's literally because, unfortunately, and that again, it's I'm giving you a dark tale that is based on what's occurring on the planet,
Mhm.
and to this day occurring on the planet, and has been occurring for many, many years. All I can say is read the novel. It's not for everybody. It's a tough read, but I think you'll find that there may actually be a real reality for you that's a little bit different than what you think is spinning around you right now. It seems rough. I'm trying to tell everyone it's going to get better for all of us, but we have to understand what's occurring in actuality right now with humanity. We need to understand where we sit with this group that's running everything so that we can then make adjustments. We have to understand it. So that's what Hush is about.
It is, and it's very well presented. And yes, they want our louche, they want our soul, they whatever you want to call it in the stories. We are dinner. We're the main course, and that has to stop. And unfortunately, like you said, the tastiest meat is veal, the young ones. That's just again as above, so below, and that's the animal kingdom. That's the universe, right? Everything's got to eat everything.
We don't ask cows if we can cut them up, and we do it all the time. They
And
don't
we
ask. I
value
mean,
them. We take care of
if
them. We
they
give them
want
good
if they
lives.
want humans, they are far advanced
Hmm.
beyond us. If they want humans, they're going to get humans.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think? My wife and I often have this argument about cloning. She's on the side that it's been happening, and she'll be like, that's not the real Keanu Reeves. And I'll say, well, they get plastic surgery. That's not the real Paul McCartney. I said, well, I think I like the theory that he died more than the cloning stuff. I'm not yet into the, invasion of the body snatchers where they create clones. Where are you on this?
Well, right away, I will tell you that there's just too many secret space program personnel, from Tony Rodriguez, Rebecca Rose. I mean, the Charles Moyen. I mean, there's so many that have gone through not only cloning, but have this alter life on different planets that none of them knew
Mhm.
each other, but they were dealing with the same reptilians, the same Nazis on Ceres, or in, I think, Rebecca Rose's case, she's actually flying a draconian ship to kind of
Mhm.
monitor what's coming into the planet that she's on.
Right.
She was cloned. All of these individuals from across the planet, what's occurring is, and this is a long-winded answer to, do I believe cloning? Absolutely. How does the cabal get all these individuals to work in the secret space programs? They can clone them in a quick second. The Greys brought that technology, as well as the reptilians. But if you think about this, all of them, all of the secret space program personnel talk about being brought back to the moon at the end of their 20-year service
Mhm.
and age regressed and mind wiped. And fortunately for us, it's the mind wipe technology, when it's amalgamated with the human biological system that the cabal uses, is glitching. And it's only
Mhm.
because of those glitches that all these individuals, Tony Rodriguez and Rebecca Rose, and just so many, I instead of going through a litany of names, I'll just tell you that it's because of the mind wipe technology glitching that they're getting all these memories back of this
Right.
whole other life. And they all remember being on the Lunar Operations Command for 7 weeks as they're going through age regression and mind wipe technology. And none of them remembered anything until years later, when maybe they're in a small car accident and something flips in their brain. The mind wipe technology now glitches, and they're in therapy sessions going, I am having vivid recall of being on another planet, but it's me. And then all these stories start to come out from all over the world of the same planets, the same military forces, the US Black Navy in space, the US Air Force in space, the Nazis ahead of everybody
Right.
working with the Draco reptilians. They're all cloned. And that's how the cabal fills its coffers, because they need workers on different planets for mining. They need workers here for deep underground military bases. They need assassins. They need people who will keep their mouths shut clones can be just taken out. And the people who have been cloned, for the most part, unless they have glitches, have no idea they were cloned.
Mm-hmm. No, makes sense. And the protagonist, Viola Wells, who did you base her on? Usually the protagonist is a part of ourselves, right?
Sure. So for me, I think getting back to the hoodwink and how it stings me all the time, where I just realize, God, I'm a pretty smart person. How did they do this? How did they snake me for this many years? And I'm in the military and I'm active and reading top secret, and I'm realizing, no, it's above all of this. Once I realized that, I thought, I need a protagonist who's going to go through the ringer, who is an excessively smart. So it's Viola Kells. I won't tell you too much about her, but she's a physicist, kind of a rising physicist. And she goes through realizing the same thing that all of us realize when you start doing any kind of alien research. You start realizing, damn, they're not only here, they're everywhere. They're among us. They're in the earth. There are ships in the ocean. There are radar operators on submarines seeing things go by at above Mach speeds. Now, if you just think about that as a physicist for a second, even if you're not a physicist, but physicist with American, or I should say human, very primitive ideas of what's feasible, will tell you it's not feasible for something to travel at above Mach speeds or even Mach speeds below water. Tensile strength would shred that thing. But radar operators on submarines worldwide see things go by. Well, guess what? If there's technologies that can create a gravity bubble around a ship, a gravity envelope, which is how all these ships travel, it doesn't matter whether that ship hits water at 1 mile an hour or Mach 30. Those pilots don't feel a thing. There's no effect whatsoever. That ship is no longer affected by the gravitational pull of the Earth or any other planet. It's in its own world. It warps space-time. It can still be detected, but the ship, tensile strength, none of that matters. It's in a gravity bubble. So to kind of get back to your question of how did I figure out the protagonist, Viola has to go through wait, how can that do that? It's not feasible. But then she realizes, okay, wait, how could it do that if anything was possible? And she reaches some conclusions in the book, and you'll get to discover those. And those are the conclusions based on factual data, not only Bob Lazar's amazing stuff, of what actually occurs with the actual ships that are here and our secret space force. It's all the same. Each ship has a nuclear generator on board it. It creates a gravity envelope around that craft. It can look like a sledgehammer or a coffee cup. It doesn't matter. Those aircraft or spacecraft that have a gravity bubble, they can do all the crazy stuff, right angle turns at Mach speeds. They're warping time space. It does not matter what they do. The pilots sit in 1G just like this.
Man, that's what I experienced. My extraterrestrial experience in Portugal was just that, in the mountains. You know, the lights that do things that just blow you away, and you're going, this cannot be of this earth, or it has to be some secret space program. But yeah, and I was there with a whole bunch of people. We were all sober. We were all just stargazing, and
okay, you were mainly sober.
Mainly sober. No, I was in still am in the AA program.
Not even a glass of wine? Okay.
No, I was AA. I don't drink anything.
Gotcha.
So
Good for you, Miguel. Good for you.
So yeah, well, at least we know. Well, as we get to the top of the hour, Graham, do you have any final question for MD?
I was just going to basically answer his question as to how they control things and stay in charge. And it's the oldest techniques in the book. It's, bribery, blackmail, control by the middleman, misdirection, especially, the false flag, which is essentially you're in a crowd, you start the fight by punching somebody and pointing to his neighbor and saying he did it. and they've been doing this 200,000 years plus, so it's nothing new.
Yeah.
This is what my research shows. Seems consistent with yours.
And Graham, that again tells me it's got to be alien intelligence that's doing that. If you think about it, like, humans don't live that long. For humans to plan that far in advance, we're not that good at it. We're not that smart to know what the community is going to do 30 years from now. I believe you're right that alien is heavily involved with the cabal on so many levels, and that's how they've guided this perfect hoodwink that we're not even aware of because we don't believe in aliens, right? It's all the perfection, the pristine cabal hoodwink. It's unbelievable.
No, absolutely, 100%. I was going to sit there and say I've had one solid, undeniable encounter, and several in which I'm not sure.
Okay.
Again, it's once you have the undeniable ones, you have some. It's like, that's kind of a good fit for that experience, but you can't be as sure as. Again, for me, it was getting pulled out. Me and my buddy getting pulled out of the snowbank in a blizzard at 4 a.m.
Wow.
And then the old RV van. It looked like a mid-70s RV out of the Shazam show. And it had, a whole fleet of them came out, and in silence, they were like a pit crew and lifted my car up out of the snowbank back onto the highway. And then, my buddy was like, "What the F was that?" And I said, "Aliens, angels." I was in the Air Force. I don't know, but we're getting back to base on time because we had to be on base at 8 a.m. And we looked after that we looked around, and that RV was just gone. And the next exit was 5 miles up there, and I got my car up to about 85 miles an hour, and we did not see them. So it's just vanished off the earth. It's like I can't deny that. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I love about that story, Graham, is that the benevolent races that are here, they can interact with us, they can evolve us, but when they saw you were in desperation, they saw, okay, these two are toast. Let's just hook them up. They won't believe what happened to them, and we're good to go. I just love that because you're not going to have a malevolent group do that. If they're going to do that, you're going to get probed and prodded and probably eaten. So I just think you had a benevolent experience that you got hooked up to get out of that really rough situation.
Yeah, no, either that or my ass just isn't cute enough for some reason. I don't know. Okay.
Who knows? Well, thanks for sharing. Well, we are getting at the end. If anybody has a quick super chat, let me know. But yeah, MD, I've got your website on the show notes, link to your book. Anywhere else you want to send folks to on the internets or the material world?
No, just mdselig.com will get them started, and there's lots of links there. And I have had so much fun with you, Miguel and Graham. So thank you for having me on the show. It's been a big honor.
Yeah, it's been a blast and really appreciate it. Yeah, and I highly, if you want to be entertained, read Hush. If you want the truth, read Hush. If you want to see beyond the veil, read Hush. It's a good read, and yeah, I'm excited for the audiobook. I've heard the clips, and it's exciting. It's a ride.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, it is. All right, first I'll say, Graham, I'll say to you, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, no, it's always a pleasure. And it was a definite blast to get to chat with MD.
Yes, it was.
Likewise, Graham. Yeah, it was fun with both of you guys. It was really interesting. You guys ask really great questions.
No, well, thank you. Yeah, we love this stuff, or that's what we're into. But yeah, thanks for coming on, and thanks for your time, and thanks for creating an important work of fiction.
Thank you so much.
Likewise, and for everybody else, take care and keep looking at the star and its denizens, and you'll be fine. We'll talk soon, and yeah, we got a show tomorrow on Gnosticism and politics. Will be a good one. But until then, yes, keep looking at the stars and write your own gospel, live your own myth.